You probably think I'm AI at this point. I don't know how to prove that I am not AI. Let's see. I mean, even movement, usually AI would not be able to generate this kind of movement, but you can now. You just have to trust me. You've already heard and read about the AI Impact Summit this week. I'm not going to go into all the details of everything that happened. You've seen the memes, you've seen the other memes. I made a separate post and a separate video on it. If you have any specific questions about the summit, leave them in the comments. I will answer them. But if there's one thing you need to know, is that this summit has proven that AI is more political than profitable. That's pretty evident by the number of world leaders that attended the summit, that made a big show of meeting Prime Minister Modi and meeting, trying to meet other people as well. A whole slew of announcements were made, country-specific announcements, not just corporate announcements. Deals that were signed, Switzerland saying that they will host the summit next year, which means that India has hosted the inaugural summit, and that's something nobody can take away from us. The French president visiting the summit, India joining Pax Silica at the summit, Sundar Pichai himself being there for that, the opposition party trying to stage a protest but failing spectacularly at the summit, and so on. I mean, we've already moved past this whole Galgotias University scandal and the Sam Altman, Dario Amodei hand-holding mini scandal. We are not going to remember that. The emphasis of the summit has been AI being ethical, responsible, and accessible. And the Prime Minister has launched a Manav vision at the summit, which is noble, but ethical and responsible AI kind of contradicts with business objectives for many of these AI companies. That's the biggest bit of skepticism that I have over here. For months now, I've been saying that AI companies are burning through resources to try and make AI profitable, which most of it hasn't done yet. OpenAI has not turned a profit, neither has Anthropic, neither has a whole bunch of other companies that you and I keep talking about. Google is profitable, but that's not because of AI. Google makes their money from search, and they use that money to pour into other business divisions. And that's the other thing that we need to talk about. That is what I put on my thumbnail. I'm guessing if you click on this video because you saw Sundar Pichai winning an AI race in the thumbnail, I am going to talk about it. That is not clickbait. It is very obvious that Google is winning the AI race in India and arguably around the world. Just look at the announcements they made. Yes, they reminded us at the summit that they made a $15 billion investment in Vizag to, of course, set up AI data centers. They also made more announcements, the biggest one of them being they have expanded their subsea cable project to lay cables connecting India with Singapore onwards to Australia, India with South Africa onwards to the United States, basically creating kind of like a Pacific Rim of subsea cables. If you're new to this, let me tell you very plainly and simply, subsea cables is how the internet works. It is not satellite, it is not oversea cables, it's not overland cables, it is subsea cables. And if you see a picture of it, it is literally a cable that's wrapped up in some kind of insulating material lying on an ocean floor. It is very fragile, and if a cable gets damaged, it takes a while to send out a boat to repair that cable, but until then, internet is disrupted in a certain part of the world. So Google, by announcing the laying of subsea cable, is basically creating internet. It is increasing internet connectivity. And if it continues to own the subsea cables, it's basically controlling the internet if you think about it. This is not the first subsea cable project even announced in India. Last year, Meta announced their subsea cable project as part of their project. So you see, something that should be democratized, something that should be belonging to governments because it is such an important infrastructure today, is being led by private companies. That is the reality of the internet today. Now, coming back a little bit to why I say Google is winning the AI race, focusing on India, which is what my channel focuses on. So I'm speaking for India. Google is becoming more and more omnipresent. Yes, they have the tools and the resources in place to make such announcements and to make such commitments. They have a whole bunch of cash they're sitting on because they make cash from search, and now they make cash from a little bit of cash from the Android and hardware business. They can afford to spend it to make Gemini the best AI model out there. They can afford to spend it to make Nano, Banana, and Veo 3 the best image and video generators. They can afford to put millions and billions into things like education and climate and whatever it is. Zoom in a little bit on Sundar Pichai's presence at the summit. CEO of Google Sundar Pichai gave the keynote address, stuck around, had a one-on-one with Prime Minister Modi, took a lot of photos and a lot of videos. I mean, one of the viral moments from the summit is him drinking a cup of coffee and saying, wow. That itself became viral. There were other Google legends like Demis Hassabis and Sriram Krishan from Google at the summit giving talks. I mean, Sriram Krishan himself said Google wants the world to use the American AI stack. Not sure exactly what that means because you can't enforce that, but it's a wish list. Okay, fine, he can say that. And Sundar Pichai, in the famous hand-holding moment, was holding the Prime Minister's hand. Not a coincidence. And he hasn't left, by the way. The day of recording this video, the day I'm recording this, is just after the India-South Africa match, which India sadly lost. Sundar Pichai before the match went with Sunil Gavaskar to hold the T20 trophy. This is probably a rehearsal for the IPL, where Gemini is going to be a sponsor of the IPL. Let's not forget that. So Sundar Pichai is going to stick around. Of course, Google has big business interests in India. I've said this before, they are training on our data. They want all our data. They also want all our brain power. Google is setting up massive offices, let's not forget. Okay, because it's more difficult now to get an H-1B, so you can't pull people into the US, so they have to stay here. But it's the brains, it's the data, it's the infrastructure that Google wants, that Google needs to enhance its business interests all over the world, not just in India. And India itself is a massive market. So the subsea cable is a major announcement, and it's part of something called the America-India Connect that I cannot emphasize enough how big a deal it is for Google, more for Google than for everyone else. There is some good in it to say that you are expanding internet access in India and in places around the world. But like I said, if this is privately owned by Google, that's not a public utility anymore. And I wonder how in the long run we are going to pay for it. And definitely some chartered accountant sitting in Google has made an economic model to tell Sundar Pichai that this is the returns that we get out of the $15 billion or how many ever $1 billion investment that we make into India in the next 4 or 5 years. So it is about the dollar. A few other things that Google announced. Yes, Google Cloud is going to be a cloud service provider to the government's education initiative. Google also announced a Google Center for Climate Technology working with the government on this. Google DeepMind specifically announced partnerships as part of its national partnership for AI. They do partnerships with entire countries, by the way, and India is now one of them. When it comes to the government, I would have liked to see the government go with local players like they said they would do. Everything that Google announced, whether it's a cloud service they're providing to someone or it is training model that they're providing to someone else, another government department, there is a local company in India that is more than capable to provide every single one of these services that Google signed up to do, arguably for cheaper. So in the backdrop of all this, Google has still come and signed deals with Indian government entities. That is the next level of diplomacy, lobbying, whatever you call it over there. That is, from a business point of view, it is quite admirable. And don't forget, Google is already omnipresent. Google is basically the internet, okay? They own search. Google is the default search engine on even your iPhones. If you haven't noticed already, Google pays Apple some $20 billion a year or something, which is under a US court right now, for Google to be the default search engine on iPhones. If you didn't know that, that's a good piece of information to keep in mind. Google is becoming more omnipresent, more ubiquitous. I should stop using big words like this. More all over the place. When it comes to AI, Google wants to be AI now, the way they are basically the internet. And of course, if you allow them to become so entrenched, it is going to be hard to get rid of them. And if you look at it from a business angle point of view, that is basically laying the foundation for a lot of money to be made later on. I mean, a few years back, China could ban Google. China could ban YouTube. India cannot do that. We can't do that now. And I'm not saying it's a thing that we should work towards. I'm not saying that it should be a default policy, but at least there should be an option. If later on it is found out that Google is harvesting data, or if it's a national security threat, we should have an option to switch off Google completely. As a privacy consultant, as a tech consultant, that is something I've always advocated for. That is becoming more and more difficult right now because of how entrenched Google is becoming in our infrastructures. Those are my 2 cents on Google and AI. Leave your opinion in the comment. Let's keep this conversation going. We need to keep talking about this because it is something that's happening all around us. We may not realize it's happening until, unfortunately, it might be too late. So let's talk about it now. Leave a comment. The other bit of news from in and around the AI Impact Summit that's worth talking about here is there are five large language models released by 4 local entities. So you have Sarvam AI, which is becoming the poster boy of AI in India. Sarvam AI launched 2 large language models, 30B and 105B. 30B is powering Vikram, which is the AI's conversational chatbot multilingual language support. And 105B is enterprise grade for things like analyzing balance sheets or whatnot, which is complex human stuff. Something like analyzing balance sheet or analyzing financial statements in general, if you are able to remove a human element to it, it's very impressive. So good luck to Sarvam for that. Then you have Jnani.ai, that's G-N-A-N-I. Jnani.ai is specializing in conversational AI. It launched something called Vachana TTS, TTS standing for text to speech, which is not just, it can clone, the promises. Vachana will be able to clone your voice with just 10 seconds of reference audio in multiple languages. If that's true, if that works, it is very impressive. Then you have an entity called BharatGen. It's not a firm, it's an initiative. BharatGen is an initiative with a bunch of IITs coming together, getting support from the government's India AI mission. They already have launched a sovereign large language model. This week, they launched something called Param 2 17B MOE. Not the easiest to remember name. 17B MOE is alluding to 17 billion parameters, mixture of experts. Again, it's a multilingual foundational model. The focus is on it being multilingual. And the 4th entity is Tech Mahindra, which launched something called Project Indus. Again, multilingual support. And this large language model is supposed to be educational, for educational purposes. Now, all these large language models released this week, it's impressive. It is a continuation of what Ashwini Vaishnav said in 2025, that India will have its own sovereign large language model. It has a lot of promise. We are yet to see real world use, but I will not lose hope over here. I will keep tracking this to see that how these models are being implemented in enterprise and consumer level uses. So make sure to subscribe. Another bit of news came from Sarvam that's worth mentioning here. At the summit, Sarvam teased, they debuted smart glasses, which they are calling Kaze, K-A-Z-E. What an unfortunate name. They are aiming for Kaze, by the way, they gave a launch date. They are aiming for Kaze to be commercially available in May this year, which is, smart glasses are not the easiest thing to manufacture. They are relatively new as a device that exists. The most successful smart glass in the world by far is from Meta's Ray-Ban. In August, was it July or August last year, Reliance in their annual general meeting announced Geo Frames, where they promised to be making smart glasses. But it's been a few months now, there's still no release date. At the summit, a Reliance executive was wearing and did debut Geo Frames, which is the first time we saw the product physically, but still no release date. I hope it happens. I mean, the promise with Kaze, what Sarvam is saying is that it's going to be developer focused, which would be great because developers can do a lot more when it comes to augmented reality. That's an entire market that's just waiting to be tapped. Anthropic, which is the parent of Claude, whose Claude Cowork caused markets to crash. I'm sorry, it shouldn't be funny. Claude Cowork caused the SaaSocalypse, which I talked about earlier. By the way, it seems a couple of days back, Claude released Claude Secure or Claude Security or something, which is supposed to automatically detect and fix bugs in your code. And that caused certain cyber stocks to collapse in the US. But the news this week is that Claude parent Anthropic has opened its office in Bangalore and has announced a whole bunch of partnerships with the firms that we already talked about, Sarvam, BharatGen, and whatever it is, basically to provide Claude and Claude related services to these platforms. One of these names that Claude said that they're providing platforms to a kind of surprised me a little bit. It's Emergent. Emergent, which became a star in late 2025, homegrown vibe coding app, which you are supposed to be able to use to basically prompt your own app into existence. So Claude's announcement, Anthropic's announcement revealed that they are providing support to Emergent. The reason it surprised me is because Emergent was supposed to be a rival to Claude Code, but maybe that's not the case. Couple of other partnerships to talk about. One is with NVIDIA. NVIDIA announced partnerships with a whole bunch of Indian companies, one of them being L&T. Now, L&T and NVIDIA are saying that they are partnering to build India's largest AI data center. That's a bit of a tall claim. I mean, I think Reliance is already doing that. So, but they are building AI infrastructure, which is basically data center. I mean, what else is AI infrastructure, right? What was interesting for me about the L&T announcement is that they announced that they are building infrastructure in Mumbai and Chennai, two highly populated and highly congested cities. I don't know where they're going to find the place for them. Maybe around these cities, yeah, but the announcement specifically said in Mumbai and Chennai. I don't believe that. But moving on. And NVIDIA announcing partnerships is basically saying NVIDIA is going to supply chips. Not free. They take their money for it, but they're going to supply chips for these infrastructure for these developments. Basically reminding us how important NVIDIA chips are in the tech world today. OpenAI also announced a bunch of partnerships, biggest one being with Tata Group, particularly TCS. Yes, you guessed it, they are going to build a data center, but OpenAI is also the first customer of TCS's Hypervault data center facility. I'm not sure why. I mean, OpenAI in the US is building already massive data centers, so massive that local residents have been protesting, and so massive that the RAM shortage in the world is being caused single-handedly by OpenAI. I've talked about this before. I mean, OpenAI has blocked something like 40% of the RAM production in the next 5 years, causing a shortage that is driving the price of electronics upwards. So I don't know how compute hungry, how power hungry OpenAI needs to be that they are even booking some of Tata's capacity. If a partnership is to build a data center, you would notice that Tata is not saying that they're going to use NVIDIA chips. That's because Tata is already building a chip fab in Dholera in Gujarat. I also suspect that TCS is going to upsell OpenAI ChatGPT basically to enterprises, to TCS customers, either directly, or TCS might use GPT to prepare AI agents and sell them to their customers. Wouldn't be surprised at all. OpenAI also announced that they are planning to open offices in Mumbai and Bangalore. They already have a Delhi office, so they are saying that they're going to open at least 2 more offices in 2026. And one more announcement from OpenAI, which really interested me, is OpenAI is partnering with Jio Hotstar for a conversational AI-powered content search. Not many details were given for this. I'm guessing what it means is that in your Jio Hotstar app, along with a search bar, there might be a prompt bar where you can say something like, "Hey Jio, I'm feeling sad. What should I watch?" And Jio will be like, "Watch The Office." I don't know how that's going to work. Okay, that's enough of AI. It's too much AI going around. I'm hoping next week there'll be a lot less AI news. We're going to end with a couple of bits of non-AI news that happened this week that you need to know about to stay informed about tech in India, which is what I keep saying you should do. So subscribe if you haven't already. One is from Swiggy. Swiggy in 2025 launched Snacc, which is a 10-minute food delivery service, supposed to be for like quick eats and office eats and whatnot. Of course, I am beyond skeptical about any 10-minute delivery promise, as Blinkit has proven. But anyway, Snacc has shut down. Very straightforward. It's because Snacc is not profitable for Swiggy. They've shut it down. Airtel, last year, they announced Perplexity Pro, 1 year of Perplexity Pro free for its customers. You could have gone and availed the benefit from the Airtel app. I did myself. It was about in May or June last year. So that 1 year is supposed to last till May or June this year. However, Airtel quietly removed that benefit. I went to check myself. I don't have Perplexity Pro anymore. And I don't think it's worth paying 17,000 for a year, 17,000 something for a year of Perplexity Pro, to be honest. I already have Gemini Plus because I pay Google for storage, and Gemini Plus is part of that storage plan. If you want to know more details, leave a comment. I'll reply to that. But Airtel cancelling a free benefit is interesting because the rumors are that prices for telecom services are going to rise across the board, and I've said that these telecom services like Airtel and Jio offering freebies is kind of a way for them to justify price hikes. And now one of these very widely advertised freebie is being taken away, so I don't know when the price hike comes. Of course, people will basically have no choice. If it's both Airtel and Jio raising their prices, what you'll do, go to BSNL. If these freebies are taken away, it's just there is less of a justification for an increase in price. Although this RAM shortage that OpenAI is causing might be reason enough for prices to increase. Speaking of Perplexity, you know who was missing from the AI Impact Summit? Arvind Srinivas. I would have expected him to be front and center, to be honest, but of course it was Sundar. Arvind Srinivas did not show up. There was no Perplexity booth. There was no announcement for Perplexity. There was no present from Perplexity itself at the AI Impact Summit. So what's happening with Perplexity? I might come back next week with an update, because that is all for this week. Thanks for watching. Please share this video with a friend so that they can also stay informed about tech in India like you. I'm proud of you. I'll be back next week. Until then, stay blessed, stay curious, and stay informed about tech in India. Bye.